Greetings, I'm here with you in the studio, Yulia Kokhan. Today, here's what we're talking about. A large-scale attack on Moscow. Ukrainian drones are surrounding the city. In Lviv, a woman suspected of terrorism has been detained. She manufactured explosives under the supervision of the FSB. Ukrainian paratroopers have launched a counteroffensive, disrupting the enemy's advance in the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. A meeting between Zelensky and Putin may take place in as little as 3 weeks. Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, made a high-profile statement in an interview with Fox News. And Kadyrov made a pompous statement about the creation of mobile air defense groups in Chechnya to counter Ukrainian drones. But is this really the case? Putin and Trump are secretly discussing the restoration of Nord Stream without the participation of the EU. Here's what is known at the moment. Powerful explosions in Iran, mass blackouts, and protests. We'll tell you whether there is any connection with possible US plans. We'll talk about all this in just a few seconds, but right now, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, Ukraine Today, so you don't get lost on YouTube. Well then, let's get started. After Russia's massive attack on Ukraine, there was a tough response. About 100 Ukrainian drones flew toward Moscow. Approximate routes were shown on the map. All Moscow airports were immediately closed in Moscow. Moscow Mayor Sobyanin confirmed the attack on the city and reported the usual downing of 11 drones within an hour. The carpet plan covered all the airports of the Russian capital, Vnukovo, Domodedovo, Zhukovsky, and Sheremetyevo. Passengers are told to silently endure it. After all, it's a basic skill for Russians. It was uneasy. In Russia, on the night from Saturday to Sunday, February 22nd, about 10 explosions thundered over Saratov and Engels. Russians complained about a drone attack, which the air defense tried to counter. Also in Saratov, against the backdrop of the drone threat, emergency flaring was initiated at the oil refinery to reduce pressure in the system.
Over there on that side, something is smoking too. Well, that means there were clearly 2 strikes.
The results of the latest Ukrainian Flamingo missile strikes on the Russian plant where Iskanders are produced have appeared. Now there's a hole left there. It's 23 by 19 meters on the roof of one of the workshops. Just so you understand, that's about the size of 2 tennis courts. But insiders say the clouds are still preventing an accurate assessment of the damage. Reading the comments under previous episodes, I see that many of you are watching us from Kazakhstan, Moldova, Europe, and even the USA. We Ukrainians are very grateful to you for your support and proud that we have such sensible viewers. Let us know in the comments under this episode as well, where are you watching us from, and does your country support our fight against the empire of evil? I always enjoy reading your comments, and for now we continue. The most interesting part is coming up. The terrorist attack in Lviv on the night of February 22nd. A 23-year-old policewoman was killed. The number of injured has risen to 25 people. 6 of them are in extremely critical condition. Dedicated medical doctors are tirelessly fighting right now for the well-being and safety of their patients.
Lives. This information was officially reported by the Minister of Internal Affairs, Ihor Klimenko, who provided details regarding the incident. These individuals are dedicated employees of the National Police and the National Guard who were actively on duty, working hard to maintain public order and safety for the community. We made it a priority to visit each and every one of them personally in their individual hospital rooms to offer our support. Currently, there are a total of 15 people receiving medical care and recovering within this hospital facility following the recent events. There are another 5 people in a different hospital. 6 of them are in extremely critical condition.
Klimenko also reported that the police, together with the Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, detained the suspected perpetrator of the explosion. She was caught in a district center. Law enforcement officers are considering the involvement of Russian special services in the terrorist attack in Lviv. Preliminary information indicates that the perpetrator of the attack came to Lviv from another region.
5 minutes ago, we detained the actual perpetrator in one of the district centers of Lviv region. The prosecutor and the deputy head of the Security Service of Ukraine will comment on the other participants in this criminal scheme. Indeed, this was carried out together with the Regional Prosecutor's Office. A successful multi-stage special operation was conducted to identify enemy agents who were directly involved in carrying out this terrorist act. We will definitely work on identifying the masterminds behind this crime, in order to unequivocally identify and bring them to criminal responsibility, both in person and in absentia, for all those involved in this terrorist act.
The police have released a video showing a woman placing explosives in a trash bin. According to insider information from Ukrainian journalist Vitaly Glagola, the suspect in the terrorist attack made the explosive device herself under the guidance of FSB online handlers. She was detained in Sambir while attempting to flee beyond the borders of Lviv region. However, this information is awaiting official confirmation. For those who don't know, on the night of February 22nd at 12:30, a call was made to 102 about a break-in at a store in the city center. When the first patrol police team arrived, an explosion occurred. When the second team arrived to assist, there was another explosion. The explosions were so powerful that they were heard throughout the entire day, in different districts of the city and even beyond the borders of Lviv. The blast wave shattered windows in nearby houses. The Lviv Regional Prosecutor's Office has already opened a case under the Criminal Code article Terrorist Act resulting in grave consequences. Sincere condolences to the family of the policewoman who died. And to the organizers of this terrorist attack, I would like to remind you, this is a game that two can play. The war will continue as long as Putin's regime has money for weapons, writes The Times. The publication emphasizes that Ukraine is marking the 4th anniversary of the full-scale Russian offensive, with no breakthroughs on the front lines or in the negotiation process. For a decisive victory, we need to mobilize another 250,000 soldiers. Intelligence reports that we are falling behind Russia in many areas due to a lack of personnel and equipment. The West estimates that Russia will be able to sustain fighting for at least another year. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian airborne forces are conducting active offensive operations, disrupting the enemy's advance in the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. According to preliminary data, more than 300 square kilometers and 8 settlements have already been liberated. The defense forces have pushed the enemy back near Kalinivska and in Ternov. However, Russian troops are increasing pressure in the Donbass, advancing toward Platonivka, Bondarnove and Privolya in the Sloviansk and Kramatorsk directions. The Ukrainian defense forces are holding their positions and controlling the situation. This was reported in a comment to Ukrinform by Major Hrihory Shapoval, a representative of the East Military Group. As Commander-in-Chief Syrsky reported, currently 97% of Kupiansk is under the control of Ukrainian forces. And ours continue to destroy Russian depots and equipment along the entire front line. For example, operators of unmanned systems from the Hardy Brigade of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine in Kharkiv region discovered a hangar with Russian equipment and an ammunition depot and destroyed it. The situation at the front remains difficult. Right now, things are intense, according to Syrsky, in Pokrovsk. The Russians have been trying to capture the city for 19 months already and have committed significant forces to this. The Ukrainian armed forces are trying to stop the enemy. The 7th Air Assault Corps showed how they thwarted an enemy sabotage and reconnaissance group's infiltration north of Pokrovsk. The Ukrainian armed forces are also replenishing their exchange fund, even if it means having to go through a fence. Footage from the 225th Separate Assault Battalion.
Look how strong they are. The 225th Regiment. He just walked right through the fence. I think he could even walk through walls. Steel men in the 225th Separate Assault Regiment.
But the enemy still managed to advance toward Pokrovsk and Sviatopokrovsk. This was reported by Deep State. There, the occupiers have started using airborne troops. This was reported by the deputy commander of the Special Purpose Group of the Typhoon Special Unit with the call sign Scorpion.
Until the end of 2025, irregular troops were present in this direction. As I understand it, they were mobilized soldiers, mercenaries and the rest of the DNR and LNR army. After, at the end of 25 and the beginning of 26, according to intelligence, their airborne troops entered the Pokrovsk direction. The tactics basically changed. We felt it. In the simplest way. It's the tactics of moving personnel. The tactics of combined arms combat in general have changed a lot. If before they used to walk in single file, 5 or 6 soldiers without any spacing, just moving from point A to point B, and you could literally break up their assault group with just 2 or 3 FPV drones, that's it. At the moment now, the paratroopers are more sensible. You can see that they have a certain training, certain skills. Now they move in groups of no more than 3. That is, there is spacing between them. Even when close combat happens near our positions, we see that it's no longer just a bunch of mobilized contract soldiers or mercenaries, but rather more well-trained servicemen.
The Ukrainians' fight for their territory continues. On the outskirts of Donetsk and near Mariupol, SBS operators also struck 2 Russian Tor air defense systems at night. I never cease to admire the courage and heroism of Ukrainian soldiers. They hold the front and stand against a huge horde that vastly outnumbers them. That is why I urge everyone to support the armed forces of Ukraine. And if you are not able to do so financially, write them words of support in the comments. I know. They are watching us. A meeting between Zelensky and Putin may take place in the near future. It is also possible that a trilateral summit with the participation of American leader Trump will be held. This was stated by the representative of the US President, Steve Witkoff, in an interview with Fox News. In the US, to put it mildly, they are hinting at a breakthrough, but as Witkoff stated, the war continues only because of disputes over territory. And the parties have not been able to reach a consensus?
Jared and I are optimistic, and we hope that the initiatives we have proposed will help bring the parties' positions closer together within the next 3 weeks, and perhaps may even lead to a summit between Zelensky and President Putin.
However, it seems the US is not at all concerned about the fact that these territorial disputes exist, and there wouldn't be any if Russia hadn't attacked Ukraine. Nevertheless, Trump's special representative stated that in the coming weeks we may hear good news. But will it really be good news for us? After all, as Witkoff stated, it turns out that Putin is an honest man.
He has always been honest with me. I say this and I get criticized for it. But it's the truth. He told me that these are his red lines. I was criticized for meeting with him 8 times. But how would you make a deal with someone if you knew nothing about that person?
An honest man who first took Crimea from us and now simply wants to take the entire Donbass. But at the same time, he is shelling Ukrainian cities, targeting the energy infrastructure. And civilians as well. Just last night, the Russians launched 345 aerial attack weapons against Ukraine. With these missiles and drones, according to the Ministry of Energy, there are power outages in 6 regions. And also, a Russian missile struck an American cookie factory. Perhaps Putin is honest with Witkoff, but for some reason he is targeting American businesses. And we will have to negotiate with him. Not punch him in the face, but actually negotiate. This world has gone mad. Meanwhile, the German publication Berliner Zeitung writes that the Russian dictator, Putin, and US President Trump are allegedly discussing the possibility of resuming the operation of the Nord Stream gas pipeline, but this time under Washington's control. According to the publication, these contacts are taking place unofficially, without any involvement from the European Union. In other words, everything is happening behind the scenes and without any public statements. Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, which were effectively destroyed and rendered inoperable after the explosion in September 2022, are officially considered closed projects. But, as Berliner Zeitung writes, in the broader context of geopolitical consultations between Moscow and Washington, this issue is allegedly back on the table. The idea is to try to restore the supply of Russian gas to Europe, but this time with the involvement of American entities and under their control. There is even mention of interest from American investors in this infrastructure. In particular, the name of an investor like Stephen Lynch comes up, who is associated with Russian energy assets. At the same time, Germany's position has not changed. Berlin still supports the EU sanctions against Russia, the aggressor, and officially does not announce any plans to restore Nord Stream. So, will this become a reality? The question remains open. But the very appearance of such publications already shows just how tangled the current energy geopolitics are. Just like the question of peace in Ukraine. Share in the comments what you think about all of this. Meanwhile, anti-government protests have resumed in Iran. This was reported by Iran International. According to the opposition Iranian TV channel, thousands of students took to the streets of Tehran and Mashhad, the 2 largest cities in the country, chanting anti-government slogans. Student strikes and anti-government protests in Iran began amid expectations of a possible military strike by the United States. According to the Wall Street Journal, citing video footage verified by Storyful, on Saturday, February 21st, the first day of the new academic semester, students from several universities held rallies, chanting slogans in memory of those killed during the suppression of the January protests and condemning the actions of the security forces. In addition to student demonstrations, Iranians are using other forms of protest. At sunset, slogans of "Death to Khamenei" are heard from balconies. The mourning ceremonies on the 40th day are turning into political demonstrations with dancing and applause at the graves of those killed. In several cities, school strikes have taken place. The current protests are taking place against the backdrop of a sharp escalation in the foreign policy situation. According to the Wall Street Journal, the United States has built up the largest Air Force presence in the region since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. According to Axios and Reuters, the Pentagon has presented President Trump with several options for action, from limited strikes on nuclear facilities to a full-scale campaign, including the elimination of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and his son Mojtaba. Trump himself stated on February 19th that Iran has 10 to 15 days to reach a nuclear deal, otherwise threatening very bad consequences. Meanwhile, explosions occurred in the city of Paranth in Iran and the power went out. The causes of the incident are still unknown, but the question arises, have the US already launched an operation? What do you think? How will events unfold? Next, share your thoughts in the comments. While Alexander Lukashenko continues to play his trademark game of sitting on the fence, distancing himself from the war, an unexpected blow came from within. According to an investigation, former Belarusian Minister of Internal Affairs Vladimir Naumov was involved in the export of grain from temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. As reported by Ukrinform, citing documents obtained by the Belarusian opposition organization Belpul and provided to the agency Russia, together with representatives of the Lukashenko regime, in particular former Minister of Internal Affairs Vladimir Naumov, a multi-level network was created for exporting agricultural products from the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, and for legalizing them as Russian and Belarusian products, with subsequent deliveries to third markets. According to the documents, one of the key elements of the initial chain is a structure created by the occupation administration, the so-called state corporation Agrarian Donbass, which acts as the centralized operator for the production and sale of agricultural products from the occupied areas of Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions. But that's not all. According to the Institute for the Study of War, Russia has de facto annexed Belarus and is using the country's infrastructure to launch strikes against Ukraine and threaten NATO. The analyst's report states that Russia's military and political leadership continues to use Belarus in its aggressive policy against Ukraine and against the entire civilized world. The Russians have used Belarusian infrastructure to support drone operations against Ukraine and incursions into NATO airspace. In fact, the Russians are already conducting a zero-phase campaign in Belarus. So that's what the friendship between Russia and Belarus really looks like. And what do you think about all this? Write your thoughts, don't hold back in the comments. Well, as always in Russia, everything is stable. There's not a day without cringe. This time, the authorities have decided to force Russians into the so-called National Messenger Max by imposing fines. Starting February 17th, management companies and homeowners associations are required to create a page on the Czechist platform Max. There they need to provide their operating hours, phone number, email and contacts for dispatch and emergency services. And most importantly, they must create a group chat for the residents. If they don't do this, they can be fined for violating the rules of building management. Well, what can I say? It's obvious that the Russian authorities aren't stopping their attempts to drive their people into a digital concentration camp by any means necessary. But what did you expect? That's how it is, great and mighty. But only in words. The Kremlin has demanded that state-run media convince Russians of the usefulness of united Russia ahead of the State Duma elections. We'll now tell and show you exactly how this will happen.
Russians will be persuaded of the usefulness of the pro-government party, United Russia. They are not with the aim of improving living standards, of course, but to boost their ratings. The elections to the Russian State Duma will take place as soon as this September. In this regard, the presidential administration has strongly recommended that state and pro-government media write more often about social initiatives of United Russia.
Power is maintained at the point of a bayonet. A huge repressive army, police, gendarmerie, serves this purpose. It suppresses any centers of resistance, any dissent, any attempts to organize in any way. There are absolutely no problems when it comes to suppressing the masses. And as for those masses I call the political swamp or rabble, for them there is propaganda, for them there is Solovyov, for them there are the inspiring speeches of various officials, non-stop lies on TV screens, and so on.
According to one of the journalist sources who works at a major Russian publication, the United Russia Party is aggressively bombarding with press releases. And the political bloc of the presidential administration demands that these mailings not be ignored and gives recommendations on headlines. It is
enough for the 20 to 25% that make up Putin's core support base. And the rest will say that Pamfilova is completely degraded. To the point of criminality, Ella Pamfilova, once, so to speak, a standard bearer of democracy and human rights in our country, will fabricate any result. There will be no problems, no candidates, no political competition, no equal opportunities, and the desired result will always be rigged.
among the topics that the publications have covered recently are praise-filled odes to the authorities, a bill to provide housing for police and National Guard officers, an initiative for new benefits for participants in the war against Ukraine, as well as the transfer of military equipment to the front.
There are some formalities that need to be observed. It's like they say, wash your hands before eating. There may be no food, but you still have to wash your hands. That's why there is some kind of formal structure here that supposedly acts as the leading political force.
A pro-Kremlin political strategist noted that United Russia has been using the same method of campaigning for the ruling party for 20 years now. A few months before the elections, a flood of positive news about the work of United Russia members starts to appear in the media space. In
2019, the political field was completely cleared out. And in 2019, when there were elections, and I participated in them, for the Moscow City Parliament, there was a total purge of democratic, so-called, or democratic candidates. They were imprisoned. And that was it. They even stopped pretending to maintain even the pitiful forms, the pitiful remnants.
This is, of course, being done to whitewash the party and lower its negative rating, its anti-rating. Success is hard to predict. It's difficult to mask 1.2 million army losses in an unjustified war against Ukraine with minor benefits or equipment.
Ukrainian air defense against Shaheds. It's becoming harder and harder for Russians to terrorize Ukrainians from the sky. New systems and munitions for the Ukrainian armed forces' air defense are on their way, and mobile groups are being restructured. The results are clear.
This year, Ukrainian air defense will become more reliable, more precise, and most importantly, there will be much more of it. Since the beginning of February, the defense forces have started showing phenomenal results in destroying enemy aerial targets. And above all, this concerns drones. Analysts say this is connected to the new concept from the Ministry of Defense and personally from Minister Fedorov, who is actively promoting the idea of an anti-drone dome over Ukraine.
It's an entire system, meaning early warning and early detection in the form of radars, 3D radars. Then there are close-range detections when the information is transmitted to the detection system of the strike complex itself. For example, this could be a missile strike complex or one using kinetic projectiles or ammunition.
It is worth noting that advanced radars are already operating in Ukraine, such as Cerberus. These are capable of detecting and tracking up to 500 targets simultaneously. At the same time, during the recent Ramstein meeting, allies pledged to provide us with additional radars, as well as a large amount of military equipment to strengthen our air defense.
As a result of Ramstein, partners confirmed one of the largest budgets for supporting Ukraine, $38 billion for 2026. We hope for the fastest possible delivery times.
It has also become known that Ukraine will soon receive a large batch of missiles. AEM missiles, which Ukrainian defenders use to shoot down Russian cruise missiles and jet-powered drones. This was reported yesterday by the Ministry of Defense press service. These missiles have been in service with the armed forces of Ukraine for several years now. In particular, they are used from F-16 aircraft and ground-based air defense systems,
NASAMS, and other weapon systems. We are doing everything possible to provide everything within our power.
By the way, the need to increase the supply of missiles for the F-16 may also be related to another recent piece of news. According to Western journalists, it is not only Ukrainian Air Force pilots who have been flying in Ukrainian skies recently. The publication Intelligence Online, citing its sources, reports that an entire squadron of foreign pilots from the United States has been formed in Ukraine.
Highly skilled pilots from the international F-16 unit often conduct regular patrols across the designated area. during nighttime Russian attacks to guarantee a significantly more rapid response to aerial threats and to effectively maximize their comprehensive radar coverage. The most significant contribution of Western veterans to Ukraine's air defense structure lies in their experience and skills in using the fighter jet's high-precision sensors, particularly the sniper targeting pod by Lloyd Martin. This exceptionally high-precision electro-optical infrared system is specifically designed and utilized for highly effective long-range identification, accurately tracking fast-moving targets, and striking with precision even in the most challenging and severe weather environments.
The Ministry of Defense has not officially confirmed this information, but it is openly stated that a comprehensive reform of the air defense forces is underway. For example, within the structure of unmanned systems forces, units of interceptor drones are now being actively formed. These have already increased the effectiveness of air defense and often help save more expensive missiles for other targets.
The number of these drones that are flying is a real problem. It's not just about scaling up the strike drones themselves, but also significantly expanding the production of the sophisticated anti-drone defense systems, as well as the individual drone pilots themselves, and their comprehensive specialized training programs.
Journalists have also learned that as part of the Ramstein agreements, additional Norwegian air defense systems are to be supplied to the armament of small fire groups, NASAMS, for those very same AMRAAM missiles, AIM and similar equipment from.
In addition to these primary stakeholders, we also maintain strong and productive relationships with a wide variety of other strategic partners, including local community organizations, international non-governmental agencies, various academic institutions, and several key private sector collaborators who all contribute significantly to our shared goals and long-term success across the entire region.
Even though the strengthening of Ukrainian air defense is ongoing, analysts note that it is in 2026 when our defenders of the sky will begin to show truly unprecedented results. For example, on the night of February 17th, when 20 out of 20 Kech-101 missiles, 4 out of 4 Iskander missiles, and more than 360 drones were destroyed.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Meanwhile, Kadyrov has decided to fight drones in Chechnya by creating mobile air defense fire groups. But is the creation of this new military formation really about protecting the airspace? Or does the Chechen Sultan have something else in mind? My colleagues looked into it. Let's watch.
Rarely but accurately friendly drones attack Chechnya. It all started at the end of October 2024 when the Special Forces University in Gudermes came under attack. After the first attack, Kadyrov promised terrible revenge.
In the very near and approaching future, we will demonstrate to them a level of severe and absolute retribution that they could never have possibly imagined or even dreamed of.
But 2 weeks later, a drone attacks a barracks. The barracks of the Akhmat Police Special Regiment in Grozny. A few more days pass and drones attack an Oman base, also in Grozny. Almost a year passes, and then again in November 2025, the friendly drones reach Chechnya. The military unit of the Akhmat Sever Rosgvardia Regiment in the capital of the Republic comes under attack. On December 2nd, drones attack the OMVD building in Gudeme. 3 more days later, and a drone strikes near the FSB building in Grozny city. That's why Don Don is raging again and promises harsh revenge.
We will take revenge, Don, harshly, Don. Our targets, Don, will be chosen. Only military facilities. And you will see just how untouchable the Chechen Republic is.
But just like with retaliation, things aren't working out with repelling the attacks either, so the drones are hitting both Chechnya and Ramzan Kadyrov's reputation. And it's actually Don Don's own fighters who are setting him up. In the summer of 25, to protect places important to Kadyrov, so-called mobile ambushes with anti-aircraft installations were deployed in the Republic. But due to the carelessness of Kadyrov's men, those ambushes were of little use. On December 15th, drones attacked the Oman base in Grozny.
On December 15th, all those ambushes and installations turned out to be useless because it was a day off and the Chechen security forces had, as usual, gone home to eat and catch up on sleep. For the same reason, on the territory of the Oman, where on December 15th, a Ukrainian UAV dove in without any obstacles, while the anti-aircraft installations, instead of being on combat duty, stood peacefully covered in a closed hangar. The third air attack on Grozny in a month caught everyone off guard. The OMON officers not only failed to call the anti-aircraft operators to duty, they didn't even manage to find the keys to the hangar with the anti-aircraft guns.
The funniest thing is, on the eve of this attack, Kadyrov decided to motivate his subordinates and promised 1 million rubles for every drone shot down. But, as we can see, they still failed to effectively shoot down the drones. Therefore, on February 17th, Kadyrov decided to create a new unit, Mobile Air Defense Groups.
Dear Ramzan Akhmatovich, as per your instructions, a set of measures has been carried out in the Chechen Republic to strengthen the protection of the airspace. To promptly detect and neutralize threats, mobile fire groups have been formed from among the personnel of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the National Guard, and the Ministry of Defense, and they are provided with everything necessary. Around-the-clock air defense is ensured by Ministry of Defense systems and electronic warfare systems.
So once again, the airspace of Chechnya will be protected by the same people who did it, or almost did it before, only now as part of a separate unit. To the logical question of whether Chechnya's air defense will become more fictitious, we also answer logically, no. Then why create a new formation? There are plenty of hidden motives. The simplest one is money.
Who is making money off this? The Ministry of Defense allocates the money, and naturally, it brings in, so to speak, quite decent cash bonuses from the Kremlin. These are the battalions. Why is it that in Chechnya, new battalions are created by Kadyrov every time? Some new battalions? 8 battalions. Some are financed by the Ministry of Defense, some by the Akhmat Kadyrov Foundation, and so on. Why? Because the money is being stolen, it's corruption.
But Kadyrov is not guided by financing alone. The Chechen Sultan needs a large army to protect himself and his clan. Well, how could it be otherwise, when you love to declare blood feuds against everyone you meet? Besides, such compact mobile units can easily be handed over to the direct control of young heirs. To Akhmat and Adam, there are more than enough positions for Kadyrov's offspring, and now there's also the prospect of a personal army.
It is my deepest desire that all of this should remain full so that they may live a life filled with dignity and purpose, and eventually leave this world with a legacy of honor and a truly good name. I have done absolutely everything I possibly could.
But the new structure has another hidden goal. These mobile fire groups could become a tool for covert mobilization in the Republic. And it's not hard to believe because the human rights organization Memorial wrote in 2022 and 2024 that security forces in Chechnya to ensure a flow of volunteers detain people. The opposition movement NII has reported fresh cases and recorded raids by security forces. January 31st.
Reports are coming in from Urus-Martin, where military enlistment office employees together with security forces continue to search for young men. Cars are being stopped on the roads.
And the raids often go even further. On February 6th, the same NII reported that security forces had kidnapped a person in order to send them to the front. But the created air defense groups can also be used to abduct people who simply disagree with Kadyrov's regime.
Every security agency is supposed to show so-called results. That is, people right now. And when something new is created, when a new structure is set up, then naturally this new commander tries to prove himself as much as possible. And this is the fundamental job of the Kadyrovites and Kadyrov women in Chechnya. Why? What is the first and main task of the Kadyrov women? Not to take Kyiv in 3 days. Not to go to Dubai to hang out with some bosses, not to get closer to the east. There, the main and primary task for Kadyrov is to ensure that Chechnya remains part of Russia. And he must use any methods. It doesn't matter. Pressure through relatives, kidnapping of a person, murder, torture, rape. It doesn't matter. Total intimidation. Up.
Everyone absolutely knows how Kadyrov and his henchmen deal with those they don't like. Reports of abductions are published almost every day. Torture is commonplace and often leads to murder. And yes, it's far from specialized agencies that carry out these reprisals.
For example, let's take the Oil Regiment. The Oil Regiment is a military unit that guards oil wells and facilities in Chechnya. They are supposed to just guard them. But the Oil Regiment is also involved in abductions, torture, and produces results. All security agencies in Chechnya are expected to do this.
But even after 20 years of living under oppression, there are still dissenters in Chechnya. And with attacks on the region, their numbers have grown. That's why Kadyrov's security forces continue their work, and Ramzan himself threatens to behead critics of the regime after drone strikes on the Republic. Given such direct threats, it's not surprising that the locations of mobile air defense ambushes coincided with unstable areas, where instead of shooting down drones, there was a spike in detentions and abductions. And we're talking about an increase in cases by 40 to 50%. Involving air defense groups in abductions allows Kadyrov's security forces to detain people in conditions of complete information blackout. After all, the pickup trucks used by air defense groups are not supposed to be used for detaining people. The air defense units are equipped with jammers, and the power of these systems is sufficient to block cellular communication and mobile internet in the targeted area. This makes it impossible to send alerts about the approach of security forces or to report detentions. Thus, Kadyrov's regime will be able to completely suppress the opposition. The film Terminator is no longer science fiction, but apparently our near future. China is preparing a real army of robots. Footage has appeared on social media showing how Chinese military are actively developing humanoid robots for use in combat operations. Their behavior in real combat is already being simulated using artificial intelligence. It is reported that in the future, robots will be able to carry out frontline tasks ranging from reconnaissance to assault operations. This could potentially reduce the role of regular soldiers. What do you think of these innovations? Write your thoughts in the comments, I'll definitely read them. That's all for now. Please like this video and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Ukraine Today, so you don't miss our next episodes. See you next time.